So, does God hate gays? My starting point as a Muslim is that I've been brought up, and this is exactly in line with Islam, love for all and hatred for none. Okay, because Prophet Muhammad never hated on anybody, he just suggested what would be good for people. That's it. It's kind of like a doctor says something, he's not hating on you if he says cancer is hurting you in this way, take X medicine. That's all it is. And at the same time, Islam preaches freedom of faith or conscience, so you can do whatever you want. At the same time, I'm not going to change what I think is helpful to society. So here are just the two brief ideas that I want to put forward before I give people a chance to talk. And one is that there's a general misunderstanding that homosexuality is genetic, and that is not understood by scientists. There's too often there's the public idea of what people like to believe versus what the science actually says. So how do we know homosexuality is not genetic? Well, there's evolutionary biology, and what that has done is decided you can decide what is genetic and what's not by looking at pain and pleasure. So, for example, why do we enjoy eating food? Because it's a form of pleasure that tells us we should keep eating food, otherwise we will die out. That's evolutionary biology. The same with if I simply walk backwards instead of forwards, I'm going against my design and I harm myself and I start hurting when I walk backward. The same with sex. Why do we have pleasure? Why is so much pleasure attached to sex? Because if we didn't do it, our humanity would die out. So that's one idea, and that shouldn't be undervalued. Like, look at how complex the human sexual organs are. To think that they were designed randomly or without any purpose, and then you could do anything you want with your sexual organs and have no side effects is a bad idea. So part of the pain part of the equation, as it were, is that if you misuse your sexual organs, we can see nature hitting back and saying, well, you're going to have sexual disease, HIV, STDs, and that's not just limited to homosexual behavior. That includes people who are, let's just say, having sex randomly with different people without taking care of the offspring, okay, which isn't good for humanity. If you don't take care of your children, that's not good. And so nature fights back against that, and you'll see that people who have sex with lots of short-term relationships tend to have more STDs. So that's just that. And the second point, before I let go of the mic, is that being homosexual is not a fixed part of your nature. So you can see that, for example, in prisons. When you go to prison, you see that a lot more people are homosexual. You can see in different environments. So, for example, you see priests who choose to be celibate, which I think is an unnatural choice, okay, and in the attempt to keep that secret, they end up doing things like either homosexual behavior or become, what's the other word, have sex with children, because that way it's not obvious what they've done. If you have sex with a woman and you make her pregnant, it's quite obvious that you've, been having sex secretly as a priest. So there's a lot of things like that, and so my point in that is that there's two main ideas that are wrong, which is, first of all, being homosexual is genetic or you're born like that. That's not true, because that's going against our, evolutionary biology. And the second is that you're not fixed in one particular sexual orientation.
Thank you for that, and it is of great interest what you've said. I'm going to come from the different point of view, which is an evolutionary agnostic concept of homosexuality, which is that, firstly, it must be very clear to understand that if you're consenting adults, then therefore your actions in the sexual realm should be regarded as beautiful, human, natural, and essential to our evolved species. So evolution, this is a vital facet of understanding here. Our attitudes as human beings have all evolved over billions of years from mammals to what we are now. Therefore, it has incredible purpose having a gay community. It's incredible purpose because evolution has made it so. And it's made it so because it means we have diversity in our communities. And diversity in our communities is what keeps us interested in life, engaged in life, creates new ideas for the improvement of a culture, a society, and a race as being the human race. So it's from an evolutionary perspective, gay sex or any sex of any nature, assuming it's not illegal as in paedophilia, of course.
Sure. My problem with that is...
Almost finished. And for the reason why this hatred of the gay community has always existed is because the church in the West has seeking to divide communities and find the weakest in communities, and therefore have used the weakest members of our community as a fundraising exercise to fear the gay community and therefore attack the gay community. And while they're doing that, they're creating political power and wealth from that fear and anxiety. And the AIDS thing, by the way, the AIDS was deliberately spread around this world by pharmaceutical companies who were taking blood plasma from prisons in America, who then sold plasma infected with AIDS, HIV, and hepatitis B and other horrible sexually transmitted diseases. This was spread on purpose, which is still ongoing cases in the UK in our legal system. They're still being tried to be prosecuted, people in that process.
I just wanted a brief point response to, before I'm going to welcome you in a second to really value your opinion, but I just didn't hear a response to the fact that in genetics, every pain and pleasure is designed for a purpose. So if you've got a very well designed reproductive system, okay, and the point of that pleasure is to encourage you to do that thing. So if you misuse it, you're going to get kickbacks or your nature fighting back as it does with STDs and all that kind of stuff. You haven't really responded to the design argument.
STDs is not just a gay community phenomenon. It's every sexual activity is prone to such.
Not every though. I also said that beyond homosexuality, if you are freely having sex with lots of people, that's not good for the upbringing of the next generation, and therefore that gets penalised by nature.
But that's a different subject now. We're talking about the gay community, and I'm responding to the fact that firstly, AIDS was deliberately spread, which I know somebody who was just a heterosexual man who died from AIDS because of the plasma transfusion because he had haemophilia. But the evolutionary sense, if being gay was ever an issue at all on any level regarding reproduction and the survival of the species, we wouldn't be here now if that was even a remote possibility. Evolution's happened over millions, if not, billions of years. Therefore, we are alive and doing pretty well with all our different variations of sexuality. All of it's wonderful, brilliant, and should be encouraged, but it's got to be consenting adults, and without that, right.
Cool. So, thank you very much. What's your name? So, I understand. Robert.
And no, he doesn't want to be in camera.
Oh, you don't want to be on camera? Oh, you change my mind. Cool, thank you. So, first of all, I really appreciate you taking part, and hopefully you agree that I won't bite your head off at all, because I'm really interested in what you've got to say, and I appreciate you being here.
Yes, I'll try and have respect for you. I've raised the temperature many times at Speaker's Corner, and I've gone off the deep end many times. Well, I'll start with a bit of my life history.
What was your response to the idea that our human organs are incredibly well designed, and if we misuse it, then nature's going to be fighting back?
I brush that aside, really. And your business about is it genetic? And you say it is not. There are scientists who would argue the opposite to that. So where are we on that? What I need to say is I'm 85 years of age. The first 30 years of my life, it was a criminal offence in this country country, I always told my mother I would never break the law. So I had to keep the law in those, when I grew up from 18 to 30 or whatever it was. I was 2 when Britain and France declared war on Germany, 2 years old.
Sure,
So
I understand that. I agree it's not good to persecute.
I've got to dress it up a bit to make you understand where I'm coming from.
Sure, okay. So I agree that you shouldn't be persecuted.
Whatever the construction of the anatomy, etc., etc., it doesn't matter a damn. But I am by nature a homosexual. Nothing else will change me in 85 years. Sorry, 70 years. When I was born, when I first knew that when I was 15 and I had my first masturbation. I'm using proper terms today. It would be other terms I would use in normal circumstances.
So I agree with you that you can feel that you're homosexual. I agree that all sorts of
I don't
feelings.
think there's much doubt about that. I
Sure,
told my
I'm just
parents
saying-
40 odd years ago.
Sure,
My sisters
but I'm
and
just
brothers and nephews and nieces, everybody knows that I'm homosexual.
Okay, sure.
There must be 100 people here.
What's
who
your experience?
come across me.
What is your experience with religion?
Well,
And
religion is
how,
religion.
have they supported you,
Well,
or have they condemned you?
Not always. I know you want me to open up on this, and to be fair,
This is what the conversation's about.
yes, to be fair, I must open up a little bit. I can't really quite get. I must close that down and start again. Regarding religion, let's face it, religion has not always been helpful with regard to gay people. It's in the Bible. I believe it says in the Bible somewhere that gay people are stoned to death. Stoned to death. We hear people talking about the Bible here all day long.
Yeah.
Stoned to death. Sorry if
Sure.
I'm getting excited.
Sure. Yeah, okay. So,
Stoned to death.
okay, right.
That
So,
hasn't been helpful. But I
Right.
must add,
Yeah.
times are changing. I've got 4 letters in my possession, 2 from archbishops, I could name them if I got time, 2 from bishops, all having a sympathetic.
sure. So I'm going to
look
respond
at
to that
look at
because,
my- yes.
so I understand from Christianity they're very, let's say, flexible, but Islam is not, right? But at the same time, Islam teaches that there's no compulsion in matter of religion. So it's what your faith or what
I'm
you
an
would
agnostic as well, I must check.
Sure, you can do whatever you want. I can't force you either way, right? But at the same time, it's important to have a position of what makes. So the reason why we're talking about is basically happiness, right? Does this make if you have lots of people who are homosexual, does it make society happier? And just based on psychology and let me ask you a question. If you had I don't know, did you have a father figure growing up?
I had a father.
Right. Now, if you had a missing father, would that be troubling
I
to
can't
you?
answer all those
Sure.
sort of
Generally
That's
speaking,
for the psychologist.
sure. So exactly. And what do psychologists say? They say if you have a missing father figure, which could possible if you have, say, 2 lesbian mothers, just for example, then you will have missing parts of. It does have a detrimental effect on your
My
upbringing.
2 brothers were
So,
heterosexual.
and it's just, I think it's very, I think, I'll give you a chance, but I'm just saying, just to finish off my argument, it's just, so it's a very natural argument that if it takes a man and a woman to make a child, then, and if everything is incredibly well designed, it makes sense that if one of them are missing, you're going to miss in your upbringing. But I'd like you to tell the last say.
There's no such thing as a predetermined outcome for anything. For instance, the nearest animal to a human being is the bonobo ape, by far the nearest. The bonobo ape is a very social animal, and they're all of them bisexual. There's homosexual activity and there's heterosexual activity, and there's no morality involved, because morality didn't and doesn't really exist. Morality is an invention by human beings, mainly from the religious part of human beings. Before religion, before the agricultural revolution, when human beings were rather like bonobo apes, they actually roamed as hunter-gatherers without any hierarchy or religion or anything. They all acted naturally. there was bound to have been, and of course I wasn't there, no one had, there was bound to have been homosexual activity as well as heterosexual activity. But doesn't change the fact that human beings still evolved, still reproduced, and got plenty of human beings around today without having to worry about whether someone's homosexual or not. It's entirely up to the individual what they want to do with it. As long as they don't harm anyone else, there's no reason why they shouldn't do what the hell they like to do. It doesn't harm anyone, so don't get upset about it.
Sure. So thank you